What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a new show here on Unhinged called Jay and Kramer. It's just your typical baseball podcast. Here with Jalen Robinson. How is everyone doing?
I'm Jay.
And I'm Brandon Kramer.
I'm doing good. I'm excited to get this kicked off. We've been talking about it for a little while, so I'm excited to get this show on the road.
Yeah, we've got a few topics here today, mainly just the stuff that's been going on, so let's get right into it. So, first, got to talk about the man, probably the hottest pitcher in baseball, Trevor Bauer.
Yeah.
Before he starts, after 4 days of his start being pushed because of COVID, he tweets out his cleats, which say, "Free Joe Kelly."
Mm-hmm.
Then about 10 minutes later, he finds out that he will either be suspended, ejected from the game, and fined absurd amounts of money if he goes on the field with that. Now, Bauer then, I don't know what shoes he went with, but all I know is he had a shirt called Send It, because he goes out there, 7-inning doubleheader, those 7 innings, 1 hit, gets his ERA down to .68. But here's the big issue. Didn't Rob Manfred said players can wear whatever cleats they want? As long as it's not, I forgot but I don't think there was nothing offensive with those cleats. It was just Free Joe Kelly.
Yeah, they say the rule is like it can't be political and it can't be offensive. Obviously, that was neither of those things. And I think this is just another example of baseball tries to control narratives, whether it's like, let the kids play. So like we're pushing the narrative that we're having fun and the game is growing, when in reality it's not. And we'll get into that a little later, but baseball really I'm convinced that they sit in their meetings and they're like, how can we affect the narrative of what baseball is to the public image? And like, that's why the MLB, like, social media accounts have been way more active recently. They're trying to engage with the youth. That's one of their narratives. And another narrative now is like, they're trying to almost extinguish this whole, stain on baseball's image of cheating, because even like people who are casual sports fans heard about the Astros situation. Like, I've heard it in rap songs. Like, I've heard it by basketball, football players. Like, everyone knows about it. That was a national story. And so baseball doesn't want that to be the national story about them. So if you have guys throwing at the Astros or whatever, like brawls, it's going to continue to grow. The story's going to continue to grow, and it's never going to go away. But baseball fails to realize that they're stepping on their own players by doing so. And Trevor Bauer is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, Bauer, I don't know have you seen his YouTube channel with Momentum? So he's been actually vlogging the entire COVID season. Love his vlogs and everything. And recently, I think Scott Boris's clients are trying to shut it down. But that's exactly what you're saying. And we'll get into that later with Tatis. But it's been so cool just to see, especially with this being a weird season, what goes in, what he does, what honestly talks about what he eats as well, which is crazy how much he's actually eating. His workouts, because Bauer's he's obsessed with pitching, which is a compliment. Goes all the stuff with the weighted balls to get to insult to injury. We get to see Sonny Gray. Besides the point, but it's just, that's what baseball needs. And I was watching an old R2C2 podcast when they had Tim Anderson on it, and he talked about starting his own YouTube channel. If MLB is going to do an awful job of marketing their players and trying to keep, as we said, those unwritten rules still in the game, then players are going to say, like, Bauer's doing nothing wrong. There's like nothing against the rules of what he's doing with his YouTube channel. And personally, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Get to see what's been going in, especially with the outbreak, how what they ended up doing was contact tracing, which is what the Mets are doing right now. But it's Manfred, it's the agents trying to control something. And this is why baseball is not growing.
Well, if you look at other sports, like, how many other sports can you say, like, star athletes have their own podcasts or, their own YouTube channels where they're marketing themselves and their team and their sport? And it's not very many. And you know why? Because they don't have to. Like, they're already so well marketed. And I get the argument that, like, baseball is boring, but that's like, there's ways to not make it boring. If you watch Fernando Tatis play, if you watch Tim Anderson play, if you watch Bryce Harper play, it's not boring. It's like Juan Soto, those type of guys, like, it's not boring at all. And if you're just a casual baseball fan and you tune into that and you see guys pimping home runs, like, that's why the World Baseball Classic had so many viewers, because games like that is what people want to see. No one wants to see Ian Kinsler hit a home run 384 feet and jog around the bases like someone just, whatever. I just don't understand how people can sit there and like almost censor the game's biggest personalities. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and that leads perfectly into, honestly, your point. I mean, about
Yeah.
what's been going on with Tatis.
Well, that's a perfect transition because I think that Tatis is the epitome of what the game needs right now. He plays a premier position. He plays alongside another star in Machado, who was in the spotlight maybe for the wrong reasons, but when he went to LA, Machado, the legend of Machado grew. He was known in Baltimore, but not as much as when he went to the Dodgers. And then you had the whole free agency and the big contract. And a guy like Tatis who leaves his everything out he has on the field, you can never question his effort, his hustle, his passion for the game. And then we have two managers, his own manager, for one, which pissed me off. As if I was a player and my manager threw me under the bus like that, I'd be heated. And then the other managers, like, which it was expected, like my guys had a problem with that. And you hear that so much. It's like, if you don't want people running up the score, if you don't want people showing up your team, then play better. It's like when football, when a guy calls a timeout and they're up by 10 in the last minute and they have the football. Just get a stop. If you have a problem with it, don't let them score touchdowns. Don't be losing, and then you won't have anything to complain about. So that really pissed me off. I love Tatis. I'm going to order his jersey to support him. I love the fact that his walk-up song the next day was Cry Me a River. I don't know if that was fake or not, but I hope it was real because that was, I want them to have some confidence to troll a little bit. Like one of my old coaches always used to say, like, whoever told you not to be cocky was just, jealous of your talent. So that's how I feel about it.
I mean, yeah, you're up. What was it? 8-1, 7-1 at the time.
10-3.
10-3. Okay, that's a 7-run lead.
And they have a shitty bullpen.
We've seen those leads blown before several times.
Yeah.
Yankees came back against the Red Sox once doing that. I mean, did Tatis potentially miss a sign? Yeah, but I'm sorry. If it's 3-0 and you get a fastball, we don't want to watch people take those pitches because I don't know who tweeted out about it or talked about it. Hey, let's say he took 3-1 or 3-0 strike. Then that guy can come out with a slider 3-1. Now Tatis behind. He hit a grand slam. We love everyone loves home runs. But when it's probably right now, I mean, you could say Tatis is going to be the face of baseball if they market him well.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't think they will because, like, someone like Mike Trout should be one of the biggest stars in sports, period, because he could potentially end up being the greatest baseball player of all time, and barely anyone knows about him. Like, it's crazy the disparity between a guy like Mike Trout and a guy like LeBron or a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who has only been in the obviously Mahomes has had more success than Trout, sure, but Trout has been in the league for some years now, and he's on pace to be one of the, if not the greatest baseball player ever. And we consider it to be like America's pastime and all this great stuff, but you could, even if you look at like how they do the MLB draft, like it's so boring. No one pays attention to it. The prospects are barely marketed. Like, unless you really sit down and do your own research, you have no idea who's going into the draft. It's like 30 rounds. It's just like, it's a lot of, there's a lot of barriers for MLB to cross for them to be on the same level as these different sports. And I think with Manfred at the helm, it's not going in that direction right now.
I mean, and that brings it, like in the AllStar games, they had to market Mike Trout. What did they do? They talked about his obsession with the weather.
Yeah, consistently. Didn't even ask him any other questions. I
mean, come on. It's just they're doing an awful job. And I mean, and then you have, after Tatis' Grand Slam, that, as you said, I would not be surprised if something happens with that manager. That manager literally did not back up his players. And let's also be clear. The manager for the Rangers was part of the team that beat the Orioles 30-3. So, and they say, if you don't want to give up bombs, pitch better.
Right. And doesn't the Padres manager have some kind of ties to Texas? I heard that too.
Probably.
Like, I heard that he had some kind of – but either way, my point being, like, MLB complaint – I hear all these complaints about, the game not being marketed or – the youth not being into the game, and then this happens, and then they wonder why. And it's like, It's right in front of you. Market your players. Let them have fun. Like you see, and even in other sports, like they start to do it too. It's like don't celebrate too much when you hit a home run. It's similar to like in football when they say like don't uh, you know don't do certain celebrations when you score a touchdown. It's like, man, nobody cares. Like the only people who care are the team that's losing or the team that gave up the home run, the touchdown, whatever it is. And if you don't want that to happen, play better. Like I don't know what to tell you. It's that simple.
I think it was really funny. I think that whole series against the Rangers, I know you had Will Myers hit a grand slam, and then last night you have Manny Machado hitting a walk-off grand slam, and he looked at it, he pimped it. That's what we need. Also, that announcer for the Padres was going crazy. And it also made me feel like, damn, we got Michael Kay as the Yankees announcer. Because I was thinking yesterday with the Yankees, like if somehow Gardner hit a 3-run home run, I was thinking, God, we got the wrong guy in the booth for a call. But that's what baseball needs. Like you want to get to those younger players and everything. Let them have fun. Honestly, thing about spring training I loved, put a mic on the players. Mm-hmm. I want to hear what's going on. Like Francisco Lindor singing at shortstop or talking to literally everyone. Or, I don't know, Charlie Blackmon talking to himself in the outfield. That's not as fun. But just like give these players a chance. One of my favorite things from spring training was Freddie Freeman, when it's a pop-up in the infield and he's literally saying to the people in the booth, oh, this one's going, he scores from first. That's fun.
Yeah, we come to watch the game for moments like that and exciting moments, home runs. Obviously you love to watch a no-hitter, like it's exciting, but you have to still think like we're diehard baseball fans, so we're gonna enjoy things like that. Not everyone is gonna enjoy things like that. No one, like most people, if you take them to a game and there's a perfect game going on, they're going to be like, okay, this is boring. Like, it's 1-0. Like, why is this fun for you? It's cool to us because it's history and we know what it means. But we have to – well, not we. The baseball front, people who run baseball, the commissioner's office, have to start figuring out how to capture people that have not been interested in baseball previously. And a guy like Tatis – a guy like Juan Soto, even a guy like Pete Alonso like last year, just like showing a lot of emotion, like ripping off his shirt after a walk-off and having nasty like hair chest, like stuff like that is gonna, it's gonna be memed on Instagram and Twitter, and it's gonna circulate. People love stuff like that. And that's kind of like why when we talked about a few months ago, like the Yankees hair policy, it's like yes, it's tradition and it's cool, that everyone has the same look and it's clean shaven. It's like the Yankees, but dude, it would be pretty cool to have Garrett Cole's intimidating beard on the mound. Like, I don't know. It just feels like they take away
too much
of personality.
Like, you got all the players with Tatis. Like, you even had Reggie Jackson supporting him. Like, you're talking about tradition. If you got players from even Johnny Bench, you had Johnny Bench chiming in. If you have players from all around, you have a problem. Like, and who knows how they're going to fix this. But one thing before we wrap it up is what I see is like the stuff with Bauer as well. All that stuff with the commissioner kind of taking control. We all know the CBA is up at the end of the 2021 season. Mm-hmm. The players got leverage. You want to market the game. The owners are focusing too much. Actually, I think ever since they've done the new like three batter rule and all those stuff to speed up the game, I think the game has actually gotten slower.
It might, well, and also now it's like the reliever game is just so prominent in almost every team. And I don't know if like the Rays or like the Royals might have been like 2015, 2016 when they had that three-headed monster. They kind of like dawned that era, and the Rays just took it to a new level with like bullpenning games. And it's just like such a drag when you're, especially, I don't know if that might play a role in like the pitchers kind of turning on Aaron Boone right now, but guys want to stay in the game. If you're a starter, you want to go at least 6-7 innings. And when you're rolling and you feel like you can get some more outs, and then your manager just comes out because of a matchup or an analytic like statistic that says this guy should get this guy out, you just lose all feel of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it has been weird though with no fans. Like I feel like I imagine this, Padres fans in the stadium when Machado hits a walk-off grand slam, or when Yankees Red Sox earlier this year when Judge hits that go-ahead 2-run home run. We're going to miss those, but still, one thing I do like is you've been able to hear the players from both sides, both dugouts. Yankees, you barely hear anything, which is kind of weird. But
it's terrible.
The moral of the story is The MLB has a marketing problem. You need to market they're focusing too much on speeding up the game and getting to that younger generation. But the issue is the way to get to them is give us more access to the players.
Absolutely. Question for you before we wrap up.
Yeah.
If you had to be the GM of one contending team or a team that you feel like needs to sell at the deadline, who are you trying to trade for, and what would you give up? Then I'll give you mine.
I thought of this because it's actually not a trade for the Yankees. It's a trade for another team. The best pitcher right now is Trevor Bauer's having an amazing year.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, a team that could get him, Great Farm, Oakland, or Minnesota. That I just kind of fear that would happen. I mean, but you also could see potentially the Indians continue to get a little bit upset with Clevenger and Plesac. They could ship them off.
Yeah, I think they'll be shipped off. Like, I'm pretty I don't know if it will be during the season or before the deadline, but most likely at some point. I think that's interesting. I feel like the Reds might hold on to Bauer and see what they could do in such a short season. Like, you never know what could happen. I see the Cubs going for some bullpen help. Their bullpen has not been too great.
Craig Kimbrell's terrible.
The Phillies going for some bullpen help. You look at a guy like Trevor Rosenthal or like Michael Givens. But I also, one thing that I started thinking about when we were playing the Red Sox, JD Martinez has an opt-out after this year.
Mm-hmm.
And with the National League probably implementing a DH permanently, I could see him opting out and going somewhere else to get out of that mess that's going on in Boston.
Yeah.
And I think the Red Sox know that. And I think they might ship him off this deadline. I could also see him going to a team like the Cubs, similar to a move like they pulled off last year, getting Castellanos. They don't really have a permanent DH right now. He would slot right in there. A new change of scenery could wake up his bat. So I could see the Cubs making a splash at the deadline.
It's definitely going to be interesting. Who knows what's going to happen with all the who knows when. Now, us as Yankee fans, we don't even know when we're playing next. It's in a way a good thing because everyone's getting hurt.
Yeah.
But what's new? But I mean, I think that's pretty much all we got for today. Hope you guys enjoy, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.